intro. I know I say it every time, but I love our intro.
So happy. It doesn't matter. Like, well, I never feel disappointed to record a Doodle and Chat, so it's not like I dread it at all. But like we hit play and it's like, and here we go.
It is. And every time we hit the ish at the end, I'm like, yes.
I know.
It's the goofy little things. It's the goofy little things
that make us us.
That's true.
I also am loving like that every Saturday morning. I'm like, which sweatshirt should I wear to Doodle and Chat this morning? Because it's cold out.
Yes. Love my sweatshirts.
Yes. So I don't hate that. Although I probably wear them in the summer too, because the basement's cold, but it just makes it more fun.
Well, and I always am like, which Doodle and Chat sweatshirt am I going to wear today? So I love to dig through and get out my Doodle and Chat sweatshirts.
Yeah, I don't wear mine enough. I need to pull those out for sure. Because I've got a couple of Mandi made by Mandi's.
Made by Mandi shirts. That's right. That's right. So how has the week been? We recorded early last week because I had a baby shower. So I haven't had my Carrie fix for a long time.
It's good. It was a good week. Fridays are always a good day. It seems like the kids finally settle in and everything that you set in place for the classroom comes together on Friday. Yes. And then it's the weekend. But it's okay. We'll start over again on Monday. But no, yesterday was really good. I gamify my classroom, and yesterday was the first day where students started asking questions about mechanics, like, can I do this? And can I do this? And my heart just like internally just explodes when that happens. And so it just we spend 40 minutes like counting XP and exchanging it because it works perfectly with math, exchanging that denominations and adding up. And they love it because they get to level up and get items based on their leveling up. But we spent like bell to bell on the game. And it's not usually the way that the period goes. It was one of those moments where I was just like, this is why I do this,
That's amazing.
It was good stuff. It was good stuff.
That is amazing.
How about you? I texted you last night. You were at a basketball game. Did they win?
We did win. It got a little dicey at the end. Got a little spicy at the end. It was a heated game. And so we had to stay a little extra to make sure that everybody was safe and it was fine. By the end, we all calmed down and it was okay. But a little spice at the end of that one. But no, it's been good. We've just been really busy. I have learned something about my admin role, that you have periods of time where things are very calm, like kids have kind of settled into a routine. And now that we're down to like this past week, it's 2 weeks before Christmas break. And then this is 1 week before Christmas break. We have 3 days of finals, but like classes starting to ramp back up again with some behaviors. And so this week was a little more busy.
Yeah, the time before holidays is always hard. We forget that.
We do.
Yeah. The reason those things happen sometimes isn't just because they're being sneakers. It's other things, even that they may not realize.
Lots of conversations this week, which I love having those conversations with kids. So
speaking of conversations with kids.
I know, that was such a good segue. Good job. I am going to introduce our guest today, which I am so super excited about. She is from my neck of the woods. She actually doesn't live very far from me. She is an educator that has served the teaching profession in so very many roles. She's been a classroom and gifted teacher, a curriculum advisor, a STARR teacher, which in Missouri, it's a teacher that would go around and help other schools sharing their knowledge, which perfect choice for that. She's a national presenter, a blogger. She's working on a book. She's an adjunct professor, and currently she does professional development for Missouri State Teachers Association. And she was the 2017 Missouri Teacher of the Year. She is so passionate about the connection she makes with teachers and students. And I can say that she has positively impacted my life as a teacher as well. I am so excited to doodle and chat all about Darbie Huff today.
Here we go.
Hello. I just love the introduction when you were celebrating goofiness and quirkiness. And I was like, okay, I'm in the right place today. I'm with my people.
You are.
That is us.
So Darbie, I know we prepped you a little bit, and you have a pretty good idea of what you're getting into today. But for any of our friends that are joining us, we have with us the Bowl That Knows. and it, yes, it's becoming famous. People know who it is. We should have a little sign to say I'm famous, or some kind of meme. Ooh, I'll have to remember that.
This is how our conversations go right here.
That's going to have to be another Made by Mandi special too. I'll have to sign up to order a shirt with the bull that knows.
Well, I actually already have a drawing of it, so that shirt could happen pretty quickly. So
fun. And in the bull that knows, there are questions that are written very especially for Darbie. We love to do our research on our friends that are joining us. And then there's a few questions in here that even Manny and I don't even know what they are. So we're going to turn our cameras on and we're going to pull from the bull that knows that has gotten this name because it always seems to give us just the right question for the person that we're talking with or the activity that we're doing. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't have a preference. It just knows.
It does.
So we're going to turn our cameras on and we're going to doodle and chat all about Darbie Huff.
So excited.
So excited.
Self-centered.
Well, that's a new setup for us. I like it.
What's a new setup?
The way the cameras look. Or is it always like this? Oh, maybe it's always like this. I do not know.
There does seem to be a little bit more space at the bottom, doesn't there?
Yeah, it's okay. I like it.
Who knows?
I'm not fiddling with it because
things will go wrong.
That's right. Something will break.
Oh, how about my hand right there?
Also, I'm going to be a little weird and quirky right off the get-go. Darbie Huff seems so weird. And I think it's because I got married when I was like 40. And so that's why I still go by Darbie Valenti Huff, because it's so hard for me to remember to say Darbie Huff that I'm so used to saying Darbie Valenti, and it's easy for me to throw the Huff on there. So it's like I still see Darbie Huff and I'm like, that's not really my name, but I don't know. Will it eventually?
We can put the hyphenation in there. So
I got it. There we go. Not uncommon either for me to misspell or have to rewrite something. I'm happy you said something.
So I will be honest with you. When I did this the first time, I wrote Darbie Valenti. That was the first time when I did this. So
not that I'm known, but I feel like when people say Darbie Huff, they're like, who? But if people say Darbie Valenti, then they might know who they're talking about. So
absolutely.
Gotcha.
But my name has always been a weird thing. So even in second grade learning cursive, I did not like the capital D. So I started writing my name with a lowercase d. And still to this day, in my mid-40s, I signed my name with a lowercase d. And so
I can relate. When I write in cursive, I don't like the capital D either. I would go lowercase all the way. D also, not pretty.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great letters.
But you know what letter is pretty is the L.
Yes.
And so my last name, I capitalized the L in it, even though it doesn't need to be capitalized. So yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Second grade.
Hold on, I just got to add something. Okay. Well, that's not quite.
But it will be. Okay. My name is misspelled.
It's like the Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, look how cute the L is. Yeah. But the D's are just big and floppy.
So true. So very true.
And I haven't found the perfect way to write two cursive F's together. So I print those all the way.
I can understand that.
There we go. I fixed it. We just marked it out into the lowercase d.
There we go.
I love it.
Have you ever had somebody on that's like this high maintenance right out of the gate?
I don't think it's high maintenance. I think it's perfect. I love it.
It's totally fine. I mean, if my daughter was here, there's been plenty of Doodle and Chats that my daughter's corrected my spelling because it's horrific. So crossing off things and adding things, it's just oh, again? Okay.
Yep.
I just decided that in my older age, instead of being embarrassed about my imperfections of spelling or whatever, like you just said, You just lean into it, and it is what it is, right? And then we just move on. So I love that you said, I also love that you said something, because names are important, and I'm happy that we were able to get it right. And then we got a story.
We did.
Yes.
Not had research.
Love
you
those
just
stories.
offered us
So
a
yeah,
story that we
second
never
grade
would have known.
Fun fact, I got counted off on a capitalization test in 5th grade because I didn't capitalize my name. And I was like, okay, I'll take that one.
And now kids can't even read cursive, so it's okay. I have kids all the time.
And I think society is going to move forward, even though kids cannot read cursive and read that primary document that no one else has read either.
That's right.
It's been in print.
It's completely true. It's completely true. I have students all the time. I'm like, can you sign your name to this? Because anytime we have a discipline referral, we have them sign it.
Yeah.
They're like, do you mean just write my name? Yes, that's what I mean. Just write your name. Yeah. They don't sign your name. They don't know what that means.
Nope. Yeah.
Oh dear, are we gonna like die in the apocalypse because some people can't read cursive,
Nah, because you know what? Instructions are never written in cursive.
We're
true. Fine. Everything's printed. We're okay. We're okay.
That's true.
Like Darbie said, unless you're going to a primary document where they wrote it with their quill pen and ink.
That is true.
We'll be okay.
That's true. We're safe.
We have AI. They'll read it for us.
But not
true. And probably tell us what it really means.
That's true. Interpret it for us and everything. So it'll be okay. All right. I am ready for a question because I don't know what's in the bowl. So I'm so excited.
Here we go. Oh, a random one. This is a good one. Oh. What is the best way to start a day?
Oh, well, I am not a morning person. And so for me, it's just a slow start. Like if I can just like chill for like 15 minutes, get like my head wrapped around the day. I actually have started a gratitude journal in the past, probably like 6 months. I tried it a couple years ago with an actual journal, and I just travel too much and I would never like actually have the journal with me. But I started an app, and so fill out my gratitude journal app at the very beginning of the day, and just a nice slow start. Like that is perfect for me. So the days where I'm in a hotel and I have to rush and get everything done and get packed up and get out the door, that's what most of my days are like. But I appreciate the days that I get a slow start, which could happen every single day if I was a morning person. But I'm a hit the snooze button over and over and over again.
I understand the snooze button.
My husband is he wakes up like 1 minute before the alarm goes off. He waits for the alarm to go off so he can shut it off. I will never be that person. And then he's up and at him just right away. Not me though. But I will have to say, I do like my gratitude journal being on my phone, because used to you'd only fill it out once a day and there wasn't consistency. And now the reminders, I get a reminder in the morning and at night. And at first I was only doing it at night, but I really like starting my day off with that too.
So do you mind sharing what the app is? Because I am always looking for, I also have tried it on paper and that's not successful for me.
No, it is not. Well, and I'm an Android person, so, but mine it's just called Gratitude, and it's a little pink heart flower.
Yep.
So
I've seen that one. Yeah.
And sometimes there's like things that are just pretty obvious, like what are you grateful for in nature, or, just different things. But then there's other ones that really make you think, and you have to think back. And I'm trying to even think what today's was. Oh, today's was pretty simple. Like write a time about you were grateful for someone that you loved that did something for you. And so pretty simple, but then there's other times you have to like really dig deep about somebody that changed your life through one small act of kindness. And those are really great to reflect on.
I love that. I think that's the logo, right? That's the one I have. It's like the heart that's like on the flower.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I think that's the one that I have looked at too. And so I just need to be more consistent with mine. But I have looked at that one. So thank you.
I also love your guys' start times because that's how I set all my alarms. Like my alarm is never going to be like a normal time. It's always, like if I have to get up at 6, it's going to be like 5:57 or 6:01.
That just came from sheer lateness all the time. When Doodle and Chat originated, we just never had our act together to be on at 9:30. Nor could we shut up quick enough to get into the episode. So we would just chat on, like, right, Mandi? Like in the OG ones, like Annabeth and I would talk for 10 minutes. Like you could be 10 minutes late and still not miss any of Doodle and Chat.
Love it.
It's true, but the funny thing about that was, so what I loved about our OG Doodle and Chats is that we had, like, we could have conversations in the chat part while you guys were talking. And so we would just check in with other people as well. So we weren't ready to get started either. So yeah, that's kind of how we roll with things. And if we have guests that are wanting things to be on time, we always just apologize and say that's kind of not who we are.
Yep.
This is who you get when you're with us. So
just know it.
If I am going to be the one who holds somebody up, then I need to be on time. Like I don't want to be causing somebody else to be late. But other than that, I am a pretty roll with the flow kind of person.
Got it. I love it.
I should have asked, are either of you morning people?
I am.
You are.
I was up at I was up at 5:30 this morning. I get up at 5 every morning, just because I don't like anything unprepared, Yeah. And not even the school stuff. It's just my house, like how the house runs. And I think even if my kids were grown, I probably would still get up early. I just love a slow roll in the morning. And then like this morning, I needed to get ready for some of this morning, and I just like the time by myself. So I am a morning person.
And I am a late night person.
You are.
So I will text Carrie at night knowing she's not going to respond. And then she'll respond to me in the morning knowing that I'll get it when I get up. So that's just how it works.
See, you need an Android where you can schedule your text messages. Because I text a lot of people at like around midnight every night, but I schedule them to where, like, if I text Carrie now, I'm going to know to schedule it at 5:30.
That's right. I do really wish that Apple had that. Like, because there have been times when I've been up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I need to do stuff because it's on my to-do list, and I'm like, I can't text somebody at 5:30 in the morning. This is too early.
Yep.
That would be a nice feature if Apple's listening.
I'm a little ashamed to say that most of my scheduled text messages go to myself, though, because I'm like, I need to remember this tomorrow at 9:15.
That's a good idea too. That's funny. That's funny.
That's a good idea, though.
Yeah.
As a way to use text as reminders. That's a great idea.
I just got a new phone and they were transferring my messages over, and it was an embarrassing amount of messages. And I was just like, I wonder how many of those messages are to myself, because if I go a day without scheduling a text message to myself, it's unusual. And during the workday, there's times where I've got them scheduled several, maybe 5 in a day throughout to make sure I've done things. So
I love it.
I could not go without that feature on my phone. Especially, I do my best thinking, like I'm a night owl like Mandi. And so, and Carrie, kind of like you said, you like being by yourself. And that's what I love, especially this time of year with the Christmas lights at night, and just turn off all the lights and just have the Christmas lights on and just be by myself for a while. Like, it's my favorite time of day. But that's also where I think about I plan out my next day then, because I'm not going to do well planning it out at 5 in the morning.
Right. I love it. Just guessing on what those look like though, because I don't actually know what an Android phone looks like. So
I think it has less.
Well, yeah, mine is different because I've got this new like fancy one. So yeah, and it's huge, and I'm getting used to it. But
very cool.
But yeah, it's big. But like, here's how big the screen is.
Wow.
But yeah, it can just be a functional phone at regular size too. So
that's cool.
But,
very cool.
Yeah. So got some little growing pains happening with it, but I'm getting used to it.
Look at that. An advertisement. She has me actually considering. I've never not had an iPhone. Like since I got my first one, I've never not had an iPhone, but that has me tempted.
The person who convinced me to get it, because I was just going to go for like the 23 or whatever I was ready for next. And she was a iPhone only person who switched to this because she's like, this is the most amazing phone I've ever seen in my life. So I was like, wow. I mean, you've seen the memes about like how like the most stubborn people in the world are Android people who refuse to get iPhones. I'm like, I think it's the same both sides. I think there's iPhoneers who are like, nope, I'm never going to do that. I know you guys have the better cameras, but we're never going to go over to that side. It's everybody has their preferences and
100%. Like when you go on your Apple phone, which I do, and delete all the other stuff and import the Google stuff, should we really be using an Android? Probably. Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yep.
So
I will tell you, I think I've never been bullied more in my life than for owning an Android phone. Like I made it through childhood pretty unscathed. As an adult with an Android phone. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. It's true though.
So like there's more of us greenies out there. So I feel like I've like got a little posse now.
It's funny. Funny.
I'm not the only one ruining the group chats anymore.
Also true. You turn my messages green.
I know it.
That is true. You're right.
Like, and why are we not to a point where we can just, like, both companies, why can we not work together better?
Yeah.
Agreed. We could say that about a lot of people. Why can't we just work together better?
Why can't we just work together?
Right? Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I was hoping we would get this one. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of technology, but we'll go with it and see how it goes. So,
okay,
we have a mystery location for you. In the Baughcum and Dr. Mandi Tolan 5-clue challenge.
Oh.
So I'm going to try to do a screen share here. Hopefully technology works.
This would make Mike Soskell pretty proud to know that his 5-clue challenge is being used in this way.
So give me a second to get, I have to pull it up on a different, because it's being crabby. All right, let's see. Come on, technology, you can do it.
And technology says, no, we're not.
No. Well, I didn't realize I had to have a tab open. I have the doc open on a different, where is it, Chrome? That's what I want. Okay, here we go. It's very special. Even Mandi hasn't seen this one.
I haven't seen this one.
Come on, technology, you could do it. All right, let me see if I can get it to present. Come on, Canva. It's like, are you sure you want to present? Yes. It is. It looks like it's delayed on your guys' end. Can you see it?
All we see is the Canva.
Okay.
We can see the thumbnail.
Yeah, we can see the thumbnail.
Let's see. There we go.
Yay! There we go. Oh my
God. You even brought your backpack along.
I did. Well, because he had a backpack on and you had a hat. No, you didn't have a hat on. I forget. But anyways, I was trying to bring in the theme, you know? All right. So an annual livestock show, a horse show, rodeo, and championship barbecue competition is part of this location's history. You already know where it is, don't you?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I recognize it from one of the other pictures.
Oh.
Because we could see the thumbnail scrolling through as you were waiting.
Oh, that was bad then.
No, I learned it.
Darn. I missed that clue. Before 1973, it was also the home of the Kansas City Monarchs. I thought that was an interesting fact.
That's a good one.
For 21 years, it was the home to a player who had a record 3,154 hits. And it holds what is famous for a picturesque view of the outfield fountains. Yes. And it is home of the K Crew and the Slugger.
Slugger, that's right.
So where is this, Darbie?
You're at the K at Kauffman Stadium.
Okay. That is true.
In Kansas City, Missouri.
Thumbnailed through things.
Sorry. Oh,
that's okay.
I will say though, I liked your clues, how broad they were at the beginning, because like if I wouldn't have been an FFA as a child or as a student, high school student, I don't know that I would have known about like the American Royal, and so that was really broad and went really specific. So, and believe it or not, so I'm a huge baseball fan. And I grew up loving baseball, but I was not a Royals fan as a child. Really? I know Mandi's like, yeah, you're not going to revoke the friendship card, are you?
I won't revoke it, but that surprises me. So were you a Cardinals fan?
Okay, no, but I was a fan of a team that was on TV all the time. And so we could get the Royals, and my dad loved the Royals, and I just had to, do something different. And thankfully for me, Carrie, no offense if you're a Cubs fan, but thankfully for me,
and it's okay.
So the Braves are on TV. Ted Turner had just bought TBS, and so I was a Braves fan before they were good, and then got to watch them lose all those World Series in the 90s, but yeah. And so Carrie, you have our shortstop. He's a good one.
But
funny. I will say that if I'm cheering for an American League team, it's absolutely the Royals. I always want to see them do well, and it was really exciting to get to watch them have their few years. What was that, about 7 or 8 years ago?
Their few
that was really
short stint of time. So I can remember it twice in my lifetime now, because I remember the last time that they were good. Yeah. And then I've got to experience it twice. But yeah, I grew up on the Royals. My grandpa took us when he could. And then I think I've shared this on Doodle and Chat before. When they would play, he would bring like multiple TVs. He had TVs on carts. And you remember our TVs back then were massive. Like they were was a feat in itself. And he would bring 3 TVs and just have them lined up because different broadcasts showed different things. And so he wanted to see what all the broadcasts were talking about. So yes, I also grew up with the Royals. So
that wouldn't be overstimulating at all. 3 different broadcasts happening simultaneously.
It was a lot. It sure was.
Yes. Well, and so I wasn't ever a Cardinals fan, but I would go to the Cardinals games because that was the closest place to see the Braves. And so, but this year was the very first time I got to go to a whole entire Braves series, because I did go to Atlanta and probably in college, and we went to a couple of games then. But this year they played the Royals, and I went down for all 3 games. One almost got rained out. We sat there and watched it pour in the stadium and hung out for 4 hours in the freezing cold. My husband was probably contemplating being married to me that day, but because he's not a Braves fan. He's not really even a baseball fan. So
that's love.
That is.
It is. I think the new rules have helped him, though, because with the game going faster, I think that he can attend to it a little bit better than he used to be able to. And I have the attention span of a gnat, but I don't know why when it comes to baseball, I can sit there and watch my Braves play all day long.
That is funny. I love it. My daughter now lives in Springfield, and Springfield Cardinals is a feeder.
Yeah.
Louis Cardinals. And so we probably didn't watch the Royals as much growing up when my kids were growing up as I did when I was growing up, because to be honest, they just weren't very good. I mean, they just weren't very good. Yeah. But so her husband's family, huge Cardinals fan. And I'm like, well, now listen, sworn enemies. Like, I don't know if I can like the Cardinals. I don't know if I can get on board with this. And so, like, I do get a little defensive of the Royals when they're like, well, we're going to go watch the Cardinals. I'm like, well, that's trash. So you should.
We did a lot of the state teachers of the year. They are from the St. Louis area. And so a couple of years ago, we did go to a Braves Cardinals game, and my boys lost. And it was the one time that I was okay with them losing because I was just surrounded by some of my favorite humans. But other than that, the Braves lose to Cardinals. It's a dagger.
Yep.
But I've been to, I think I've been to like 8 different stadiums, and Wrigley is still on my list. But every time they play in Wrigley, we're on vacation. And so I need to figure out how to make that happen sometime, especially since my boy Dansby's there too. So
it is a fun stadium to go watch a game at, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You shared, with teaching, it is always changing and always evolving. I like the challenge of creating and failing and improving and learning. How do your words inspire the work you do today?
Because I flub up every single day. And I think, and one thing that I appreciated about Mandi when I first met her is just how she was always future forward thinking. And like, she always like challenged herself to think outside the box. And I think that's why I related to her so much, because I always loved doing that. And so in the classroom, my lessons didn't look the same year after year. Like, I always thought about, how am I going to make this better next year? Or how am I going to make this more relevant? And even though my role is different now, my presentations, I'm still constantly doing that. A lot of people are like, well, don't you already have that presentation done? And I'm like, I don't present any presentation the exact same way twice. And so I'm always thinking about that specific district, or what their needs are, or what really worked well last time that I need to keep, but also what can I make tweaks to, what can I change. And so I think I still do that today, and think about, okay, so this didn't really work the way I thought it would. How can I tweak it to make it work? Or do I just need to pitch it? And so yeah, my presentations are, I think, what my lessons used to be, except I get more opportunities to revise them. I don't have to wait a whole year anymore to make them better. Which some of them I do. Some of my presentations I may only do once a year, and other presentations, especially now, I'm doing a lot of trauma and challenging behaviors and things like that. Those presentations I'm doing a lot of.
Totally relate to that. I don't know that I've ever taught anything the same, exactly the same. I don't think I've ever presented something exactly the same. I always go into those and look very, just being reflective, just knowing
Yep.
this worked well, this didn't, or this audience needs something different. And I think because every classroom's that way too. Every classroom needs something different. You can't just teach it the same way because you don't have the same kids.
Yep.
Agreed.
And I'm never going to be a presenter that doesn't model good teaching, like what I felt like was good teaching in my own classroom. And so I'm not going to get up there. I'm not a sit and get presenter. You're not going to just sit and listen to me talk the whole time, because I wouldn't do that to my students. And I know some teachers don't really care for that always. Like they're just like, just leave me alone. Let me sit here and be invisible. But usually by the end of it, they're glad that they got to experience it. Or if not, they haven't been brutally honest in the evaluations, I guess. So. That's probably my downfall, though. I get so caught up in being there with the teachers that a lot of times I'll forget to do the evaluations. And then I'm like, oh, I need that feedback. And so I'm really bad about that.
I usually have to put it into my presentation as a slide. Because
at the end,
I do that too. Same thing, because with the classes that we teach, my university finally got smart, and their last assignment doesn't unlock unless they filled out the class feedback. Because I was the worst about saying, guys, you have to fill out this feedback for me. I was terrible about it. And so when they switched that, I was like, that was smart. Good job, guys.
Yeah. Well, and I try to just honor the teacher's time as much as I can. And I know that in some cases, I'm only getting them for like an hour, and I want to get them as much useful information as possible. And so, and I even try to think about, even if they can't relate to the content that I'm coming in to present on, because I know that they don't always get choice in that, then what is a strategy that everybody can walk away with? And so I think I get so caught up in just trying to get as much of that in, that my closing slide is always just kind of an afterthought. And I'm like, okay, here's my contact information and evaluation. Sorry, time's up, but fill that out. Like, I feel bad for this day to fill it out because I didn't allot my time well, but it's part of that messiness, right?
That's right. Messy is good.
Let's see what we have next. Oh, what is the best type of cheese?
Ooh. The best type of cheese. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go down the row at Osceola Cheese Factory.
So Carrie doesn't know. So there's a town in Missouri called Osceola, and the only thing they're known for is this cheese factory.
Yum.
And you can go in, they have like samples sitting out, and yeah,
it's a little different post-COVID. And it's just a wall of coolers with all the different kinds of cheese. And so, but I'm a pretty like I would say my go-to is like a Colby Jack. But I love like the cheese curds from Osceola Cheese Factory that have the garlic and the dill in them. I think those are pretty good. But we just went up to Pella, Iowa last weekend. It's a little Dutch town, and they had a Christmas Kurtzmart celebration, and they had Huda cheese curds. And I love cheese curds, like the deep fried ones.
Yes.
But they had ones with Gouda Huda, the correct pronunciation of that. But those were phenomenal. Those were so good. What about your guys' cheese selection?
I like Colby Jack too. I think it depends on what I'm eating. Like if I'm gonna have like something on rye bread, I really like Swiss cheese for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if I'm having like a salad and I want to add cheese, and it's cheddar. So, but I do like Colby. I like a good slice of Colby Jack. That's always yummy. And I love cheese curds too.
Yes. Now, do you like the cold cheese curds or the fried cheese curds?
The fried ones.
Yes.
Dipped in ranch. That's the way they do them in Wisconsin. That's where I usually have them, at the Wisconsin State Fair. So they're super
You have the
yummy there.
squeaky cheese.
Yes. And you dip them in ranch dressing. Delicious.
Yes.
So healthy.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love a Colby Jack. That's probably what we use the most in our house. But my parents live close to Jamesport, which is a big Amish community.
Yeah.
And they have handmade smoked cheddar that my dad will always get for our Christmas celebrations, and he'll slice it up. And that smoked cheddar is probably some of the best cheese I have ever had. So it's really good. Yeah.
I grew up not too far from there, but I never had that.
Yep. Well, my dad is really big with the Amish community. He actually Ubers for them. Like we call him the Amish Uber, but he because they don't drive. So he drives them around and helps them deliver their goods and picks up things for them. And so my dad Ubers the Amish.
I remember they were in our conference, and so we were playing a softball game once, and I mean, we just were probably 25 minutes from one another, but it did feel like a whole nother world because, you know, like I grew up in a pretty homogenous area. And so I remember going over there, and we would always be on the lookout for the horse and buggies, and we'd pass them and just all look out the window. But I was playing a softball game, and I was playing third base, and this little Amish girl came rolling by on rollerblades. And I was just like, they have rollerblades? I just remember, like, here I am supposed to be playing defense, and I was just watching this girl skate by. I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, I mean, I guess that's not much different than a horse and buggy. Then there's, you know, not a motor in it. So, which I don't know all the different rules that they have, but it was always a cool.
That's pretty funny.
I told you I had the attention span of Nat, even when I have a baseball or a softball.
I love it. It is a completely different world. It is a completely different world and culture. And I was fortunate enough. I grew up close to that area, and so I got to see that culture. But yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, and I really feel like that's the only like multicultural experience that I had the whole time growing up until I went to college. And how sad is that? You know, that and I wish I would have asked more questions and tried to learn more about it instead of just, you know, those little things shocking me. Like now I think about what a disservice that was, not getting the opportunity to learn more.
Yeah. All right. This is one of the longer ones. Another Darbie quote. You were very quotable. It was fun. You once said, I learned to teach the child, not just the curriculum. You know, the things that matter most are the things that can not be measured. How did moments in your K-12 education shape this belief?
And if you ever get to hear me do a keynote, you hear me talk about my teacher, Mrs. Leeper. And
Yes.
so Mrs. Leeper was my art teacher, and just one of the most incredible humans ever. And I was a little bit of a troublemaker in school, and I share with teachers that I usually just tell this story about this girl and all like the trouble that she brought with her. And they're like nodding their head because they're like, yeah, we've got one of her in our classroom too. And I talk about this girl had 56 detentions and 24 days of in-school suspension her 8th grade year. And then at the end, I revealed that it was me, and they just can't believe it. And so, but I was that kid that I was going to argue with you. I was going to get you in a power struggle. I was, and I can't even believe that and I still can't believe this to this day, but I was a kid who would throw down with other kids, if there was an issue, like I solved it with my fist. And I cannot imagine hitting another human being right now. Like, I think either one of you could come right now and just like hit me in the face and I'd be like, okay. But that's the kind of kid that I was. And it had to do a lot with my home life. And so I had just an incredible art teacher and who did all these little things, even though I didn't even take art for several years because I was in a small school. I was in band. And so when you were in band, you had to choose between band and art. And so I didn't get to take art for several years, even though it was a little K-12 school. I had her in elementary. I had her for like the quarter or whatever in junior high, but then I didn't have art again until my junior year. And so she would always just make sure to find me in the hallway, or she would come and stand by me when I was going in the lunch line and just ask how I was doing and how things were going. And I'd be at my locker and I would shut the door and like, there she would be. And I tell people she was like whack-a-mole. I couldn't get rid of her. Like, she just never went away. But all those things, like she just making like these small little deposits in my emotional bank account just to like show me that I could trust her as an adult. And so, and I didn't see it at the time. I didn't see it till decades later, and when I became a teacher, I saw how important it was to really make sure that I was seeing the kid first and the content second. And so, and I was in art class my junior and senior year. And that lady convinced me that I was halfway good at art. So when I went to college, I actually majored in art. And then I realized, wait a second, maybe I'm not so good at art. But so it was just all those little things that she did that always just put me first. And she worried about everything else later. And so I always wanted to be that kind of teacher. And so even now when I talk to teachers, I encourage them to be someone's Mrs. Leeper. And just recently, I remembered to give out the evaluation at the end of my presentation. And one of the things that says, what suggestion would you have to make this training better? And someone even said, bring Mrs. Leeper. I was like, yes. And so I had to, of course, take a picture of that and text that to her and let her know. But and I also had the opportunity to student teach with her. And so, which was a really cool experience. And at that point, I think I knew that I wasn't going to be teaching art because I was an elementary ed major and an art minor. But what that provided me shaped my whole career and on how to treat kids with dignity and teach the whole child before whole child was even a buzzword. And so I'll never forget, she was talking about this time that it must have been one of the times that I remember her standing with me in line for lunch, because when she got to the teacher's table, everybody was like, how can you even stand Darbie? How can you even put up with her? And yeah, like she just argues all the time. And she just said, well, it's simple. Just don't argue with her. So she's like, I don't argue with her. And but they just kept talking about me. And so she said that she grabbed her lunch and she stood up and she left the table. And when
Wow.
she told me that story, I was just like, she literally and figuratively stood up for me. And I knew that I was always wanted to be that teacher. And so anytime that I was in a teacher workroom and and I know that we all vent and we have stressful situations and we need to get those out. But anytime it turned anti-kid, like I remove myself from that situation because I don't want to be the teacher who forgets to put the kid first. So, but yeah, Mrs. Leeper, she did so much for me in my life and in my career. I mean, I wouldn't be a teacher without her. I wouldn't have been, I don't even know if I would have gone to college if it wouldn't have been for her. So,
Wow.
Yeah. I was first generation college student, and we definitely didn't have the money or the funds. I was active in FFA, which is why I knew about the American Royal and your 5 Clue Challenge. And so I got all these FFA scholarships. Well, you can only get those scholarships if you major in ag. And so she's the one who convinced me, well, if you go and you major in ag your first year, you can get those scholarships. So I was an ag ed major with an art education minor.
That's so smart, though. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You know, they made the system this way, so like, you know, you just do the best you can with it.
Yep. And I wouldn't have known to do that. You know, like I didn't even know the world of college. Like that wasn't necessarily in my game plan. And for her to know that and to get me to follow through on that, it made for an interesting meeting with my first advisor. Because here I have this farmer / professor in my animal science class, and he's like, well, this is a first. And so and I think he just thought I was kind of crazy. And but I eventually won him over by the end of the year. But I think he was still glad to see me leave the program. I think he knew that wasn't a good fit for me.
Especially considering Amish wasn't as far farming as you had gotten at that point.
Yeah. Especially because even I grew up in a really small town. Like I grew up in town, so I wasn't even a part of the farm scene in our little town. But we had to artificially inseminate a cow. I had to notch pigs' ears. I had to, like, I keep trying to think all these other things where I was like, okay, I think that ag ed is not my lane.
Funny.
But, yes. So if you've never been arm deep in a cow, you're not living.
Personally, I haven't been, but sadly, I have had to watch that. So I understand what you're talking about. I've been right there with that experience. So.
Yeah. Like, I know you're probably familiar with waders that you put on to like go out into a pond and stuff. Yeah, but they have those for your arm.
They do. They sure do.
I've only seen that on zoo shows because they do that for other animals too. So I do know what you're talking about.
But I got that was my science credit. I took animal science. And so I had to take one other science credit other than that. So I was surprised that carried over. But maybe they thought as an elementary teacher, I might need to know some of that stuff.
That's funny.
I think we have time and room for one more question. I did have fun drawing whack-a-moles. I think that's a first for me. So that was fun.
That lady was the most consistent person in my life. She was a whack-a-mole. Like she kept popping up.
So just out of like genuine curiosity, and you're like, you know, high school, 8th grade mind, were you like, what the F some of the times that she kept showing up, or deep down inside, did it genuinely mean something?
I think at the time, at first I didn't think didn't catch on to like what I was probably really thinking. Like, I just thought, she's just annoying. I just, and especially because I'm not a morning person. And as soon as I would walk in the door of the school, she'd be like, "Good morning, Darbie," and be so chipper. And I'm like, whatever, and I tell people, like, all those little times that I remember her greeting me, I remember her saying my name, which was huge because a lot of people did not say my name. And when they said my name, it was not in a pleasant tone. And I even share sometimes about one teacher who didn't even call me by name, but she always called me Little Miss Innocent. And so, like, obviously in that, I knew that whatever was going to happen was going to be my fault. And, my classmates caught on to that too. They knew they could get away with whatever, that I was going to take one for the team there. And so, like, just that, like, those little things, like her saying, good morning, and saying my name and how are you, Darbie? And eventually, I think it was probably about my freshman year, I started just really appreciating it. And I had a teacher turned principal who, I remember him calling me into the office one time, and he had called me into the office, and this is going to get a little heavy and I apologize, but he called me into the office because he was concerned about me and he thought that I might do something to try to hurt myself. Mm-hmm. And I just remember on the inside, I was like, somebody sees it. Yes. Somebody knows. But on the outside, I couldn't help but cry because it was such a sweet relief. And so I had to save face. I had tears streaming down. I was in my emo phase. So like there was mascara everywhere. And so I showed anger because I had to protect myself. And I was like, how dare you say that about me? Like, you don't know me at all. And I remember that's the front I put on because I had to explain those tears. And I was like, he just had me so angry. He made me cry. But really, I was like, he sees this. And those two were two of the educators that really saw some of the things that I had going on inside. And so I would say it's probably my freshman year before I started to appreciate what they were doing for me. Did I always show that appreciation? Probably not. And but I will say that by my sophomore year, I moved in with my foster parents, who are the most incredible humans on the face of the planet. And I didn't have another detention, another day of in-school suspension, none of that, the rest of my time in high school. And so then I started to see things a little bit differently too. And so I knew that by that time, the principal I told you about, he had moved on, but I knew that I could count on Mrs. Leeper, and she was my person and a confidant. So, but yeah, in the moment, didn't always know that, didn't always treat her the way that she needed to be treated, and now I try to make up for it, and she hates it. She's like, "You give me way too much credit, and you're way," But yeah, and so those kids that sometimes push us away are really wanting to draw us in, but they've got to protect themselves.
100%. And that's mostly why I wanted to ask that question to you. You probably knew that already. I just think it's a wonderful thing. We see it all the time. Like the kid that is the worst is the one that needs you the most. And those quotes are meaningful, right? But people's message that we can really, when you get a chance to ask a student, who can then reflect and tell you, or a person who's gone through what you've gone through, I think it's a wonderful reminder for educators to just hear that steady flow of kindness and genuine kindness to a student is worth it. Even if they don't seem like they like it, even if they don't seem like they acknowledge it or that it doesn't matter to them, it does. I think it matters to every human being. It always matters, and it means something, and it's important for us to maintain that with our students. So I
think one of the for us as teachers is we pour into kids and we pour into kids and we pour into kids, and sometimes we don't see that benefit. And if Mrs. Leeper would have been my classroom teacher, she wouldn't have seen that benefit. But what she did was get me to realize that I could trust other adults. And I know that I share this with teachers, and it's hard to hear, but you may not be able to get them to form a strong relationship with you, but you may break down that wall that allows them to trust someone on down the line. And we're hardwired for connection. We need that human connection to survive and thrive. And we need to make sure that our kids feel like they can trust adults, because if there's been harm caused to them in their lives, unfortunately, statistics show that more likely it's an adult who's done that. So we need to help them change their minds. And so
I like that reminder. I feel really lucky every day. I mean, I still, after 25 years, really love my job. And I really do love having my kids, my students. I get them on a 3-year cycle. It's becoming more of a 2-year cycle now. But when you have kids consistently, they're not going away. So even the one that's really difficult, he's with me for 3 years, you know? And I think but it's nice your reminder is nice that the work that I do now, I may not see it now, it might be in 10 years or 5 years or whatever, but it's still important. And I do think, you know, you're right, we are hardwired for connection. And I think, at least with the students that I support through, you know, they receive services through their IEPs. Lately, I've seen that relationship part is really hard to develop, and that's hard on a human and as a teacher, you know. But I think we just have to do what you said, is just trust that as educators, we know our strategies and things that are good for kids, and we do have to keep pouring in, even when it's not coming back. I think sometimes it's tough. I have a kiddo this year, and they are very tough, and the relationship building part is really tough, because their reaction to being frustrated is to be mean and to be frustrating, you know. But boy, are they good at it, because they've gotten good at it for a long time, you know, if that's the thing that works.
Yep.
But it's good to hear from you, you know, that it's just a reminder to anybody who's worked with a frustrating student that it's worth it, because it will matter sometime. Even not now, it'll matter.
And I will tell you, I just had one of those moments this week. And so there was a student I had in 5th grade when I was a 5th grade math teacher. I taught only math for, I think, 1 year. And so every time he came into my classroom, he was already triggered, because math was not his subject. And especially fractions, like he hated fractions. He was so good at decimals. And I'm like, decimals and fractions are the same thing. Like, I couldn't get him to see that. But I mean, he would call me every name in the book. He would rip up assignments. He would tear up stuff, because it was easier to cause a scene to try to get kicked out of the classroom than it was to sit there and struggle and to do math. And so that kid gave me a run for my money that year. And now he's a senior. And there was a reason that he acted the way he did. And now it breaks my heart, but he's sharing his own senior Sunday photos, because he doesn't have anyone to share senior Sunday photos for him. And so I got on there and I put on a throwback from 5th grade. I was like, I love a good throwback on a senior Sun. And he messaged me. He's like, could you send me more of those so that I can post those? And he was just like, thank you so much for all that you did. And, you know, and I don't ever need to hear that thank you. It's nice, and it made me cry. And it's a reminder of what we do is so important. But it's been years, but just seeing him succeed and seeing him post about his future and his success, like, that's all we really want and need as educators. But sometimes those messages, even if they come years later, it's a reminder that all those small deposits we make have a big payoff in the end.
Agreed. It does. I'm going to add to that, because sometimes our leadership in our schools, I think, weaponize relationships. If you just had a relationship with a student, they would do more for you. And I was in the classroom for a long time. I tried to build relationships with students. Some of those relationships, and when you said that, it just related to me so much, that we don't always see the fruits of those relationships that we build. I've had students that I would talk to every day. They would talk to me, but they still wouldn't do anything for me. I never took that personally. I still talk to them every day. I still built that relationship. And I will still have those students who will find me out, like they've graduated, they've gone off in life, and come back and say, just you talking to me every day. Like, I know I didn't do anything for you, but you never gave up. And that stuck with me. And so I just don't want us to ever weaponize that, because just because they're not doing something for you right then doesn't mean that relationship isn't impacting that student. And I think that's the important part, is the relationship and not necessarily the outcome at the moment.
Yep.
I love that.
And if you would have looked at me in middle school, you probably would not think that I had a relationship with Mrs. Leeper, because it wasn't visible, because I wasn't going to let my guard down to make that seem visible. But in the end, who am I talking about 30 years later? And so,
Right.
Yeah. And I love both of your stories. I think I have a different perspective a little bit, but I think I want to share it just in case anybody's watching the last, 5 minutes of our hour-long episode, just to give a different perspective, because I think as a teacher who teaches special education students, I would say I can count on one hand, maybe two fingers, how many times I've had students come back to say something to me or thank you. But I take that as the biggest gift, because the students that don't come back to visit me, it means they don't need me anymore. No, I'm going to cry. So sometimes we get to see what we do, and sometimes we don't, because they don't need us anymore. And I think that's also important.
Absolutely.
that is. Yeah.
Wow.
And that is a good mic drop for the end of this episode.
Hey, how do you top that?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Darbie. Thank you for letting us share a piece of ourselves. I think that's what makes you so special as the educator that you are, is that you fearlessly share your own story, but then reel people in a very special way to get their stories too, while shining a light on education and everything teachers do. And we appreciate you for that.
If I had one word to describe Darbie, I would say she is an amplifier of people.
That is, I'm very fortunate that I get to be in the role where I get to do that, because I get to pay it forward, just like, and invest in people like people did for me. And so, the old saying, stand on the shoulders of giants. And I just feel like we've got a huge pyramid going, and that's what I try to keep doing is keep paying it forward, just like others did for me. So I'm very fortunate to be able to do that.
Well, thank you so much for spending a small part of your Saturday with us. If you were here with us or watching later and you doodled and chatted with us, please snap a picture of your doodle and chat and share it out on your favorite social media platform using hashtag Doodle and Chat or tag @Doodle and Chat on there. We love to see others joining us in the fun that we have here every Saturday morning at 9:33ish Central Standard Time. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Darbie.
Thank you.